Business has taught me about motherhood to be more patient. I think I struggled with patience a little bit before I started a business, and it's kind of taught me to like slow down a little bit and understand that things just take a while. What has motherhood taught me about business? That you can do a lot of things at once.
This episode is brought to you by Mariah Martin Sleep Consulting. If bedtime feels like a battle and your child's sleep or lack of it is running the show, it might be time to call in a pro. Mariah Martin is a certified pediatric sleep consultant who helps exhausted parents turn chaos into calm with personalized sleep plans rooted in science and compassion. Whether you're dealing with night wakings, nap struggles, or early morning wake-ups, Mariah's gentle, evidence-based methods are designed to meet your child's needs without the stress. She's a mom herself, so she gets it, and she's helped hundreds of families finally reclaim their nights and their sanity. Visit MariahMartinSleepConsultant.com to schedule your free discovery call and take the first step toward peaceful, predictable sleep, because you deserve rest. Welcome back to the Running Wine Mom podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Cieslinski, aka the Running Wine Mom. Today's guest is someone who truly embodies the spirit of raising rad little humans while building something incredible. Maddy Fero is the founder and CEO of Little Rad Things, a brand that's not just about kids apparel, but about instilling confidence, empowerment, and a whole lot of adventure into the next generation. Maddy is a powerhouse. She's a mom, a business owner, and a woman on a mission to make parenting feel a little more fun and a little less overwhelming. We're going to dive into her journey from the moment she decided to create Little Rad Things to the behind the scenes hustle of a mompreneur and how she finds balance in the beautiful chaos of it all. So without further ado, let's welcome Maddy. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm taken aback. That was the most beautiful introduction. So thank you so much.
Of course. And I want to give a shout out for your fashionable boy stuff that you have on your website. My friends are always talking about how hard it is to shop for boys fashion because it's just like dinosaurs and trucks. And we're like, where? And you have gone beyond that. So I love that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we could talk about Little Rad Things and how it began. That's truly, honestly, how it began. Like, I would go to the stores, to a Marshall's or a Target, and I would be so frustrated by what was there to actually like put on my baby boy. And none of it looked like stuff that I like to wear, that my husband liked to wear. And I started sewing during the pandemic because I was stressed out and just needed a creative outlet, and it just blossomed into this beautiful small business.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to talk more about it. And just like I had my daughter first and then I had my son, and my daughter was like, oh my gosh, there's all these beautiful things. And like my sister had boys and she would always complain about it. Like, and I'm like, it can't be that bad. And then I start looking and I'm like, wait, no, it really is that bad.
It really is that bad. Yeah. I specifically remember once when he was probably just like 2 months old. I was in a like TJ Maxx Home Goods combined store, and I was like, I'm just going to see what they have for boys. And I remember there were like 2+ racks for girls and just like half a rack for boys. And what they had for boys, out of the whole rack, I found one thing that I liked, and it was like a color block hoodie from like 7 for All Mankind. But like, it was probably like 4 styles too old, or it wasn't sized right, and that's why it was there. But there was nothing else.
Well, before we dive more into that, to start each episode, we have our wine, and Win of the Week segment. This is where we share our favorite bottle of wine, vent about something that's been bothering us, and celebrate our recent victories. So grab a glass, take a deep breath, and let's get started. So Maddy, what is your WINE of the week?
Well, my win of the week is that I have a call with Monster Jam.
Ooh.
Yeah, to talk about a collaborative shirt or something, which is insane to me. When they reached out, my husband and I were like, no way.
Oh my gosh.
We have to figure out how to make this work.
That's awesome. Congrats. And what's your wine of the week?
I always like a good like red wine, usually like a Cabernet. I'm not picky on what bottle, just any type of cab.
Awesome. And how about your wine, your WHINE of the week?
My wine of the week is that my husband has been in Daytona for the Daytona 500 since Tuesday. So I've been solo parenting all week.
So this time last year, we were in Disney with our family, and the day that we were coming home was the Daytona, and it was like a downpour that weekend, I think. And so we were really worried because we actually drove home from up to Pennsylvania, which is crazy. I will never do that again. But we had to drive right past all the Daytona 500 stuff, and it seemed so cool down there.
Yeah, it's a really fun event. Super cool track. I used to travel in NASCAR and it was like my favorite thing ever. But
Oh,
now that I stay at home with the kids, I'm like, okay, when are you coming home? Please
yes.
come back.
It's really, really hard. My husband's schedule is crazy, so I understand. He's not away, but he's not present a lot of the time. So I feel you on that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into it. Take us back to the very beginning. What was the moment that you thought, like, I need to start Little Rad Things? And how did you learn how to sew also? Like that when I was reading that, I'm like, oh, you just like took it up during the pandemic.
Yeah, I've always been a creative mind and somebody who enjoys challenging myself. I guess like looking back at like my lifespan of like growing up and things that I would do, it's really not surprising, I guess, that I would take on a new challenge and just decide to attack it. But yeah, during the pandemic, David was home. You know, he travels in NASCAR. He's usually gone like 36 weekends of the year. Suddenly, he is off work 24. Newborn is at home with me, and I worked for a fitness franchise that was closed, but I had to like educate my franchise partners on how to still make money
Yeah.
while being closed. So I would spend my day on the phone all day with these franchise partners and then like be stressed out because David was telling me, I'm going to watch Paxton. And then he'd be in the backyard digging up dirt or doing something and the baby is nowhere to be seen or the baby's right next to me. And so in the evenings, it was like, okay, I'm either going to like drink myself to death from boredom, which I think a lot of people did during the pandemic,
I
or
was pregnant during the pandemic, so I missed all of that. I'm like, that's a good thing. I would have drank too much.
yeah, right. Or teach myself like do something creative. And my mom had bought me this sewing machine like 2 years prior for Christmas. It was in my closet. And one day I was like doing fiddling things and I was like, you know what? I'm going to see if I can use this or like do something with this. And she gave me a website recommendation for like these really cool exclusive prints. And after spending hours on there looking at every type of print they had, I started to kind of find things I liked and started buying it, making it, and just posting it because, you know, you have your first baby and you have all this time and you're like, let me show them off today.
Yeah.
yeah. And that's really kind of where it started. I would say the fact that I was working for the fitness franchise and I was really stressed out. And I had seen these two entrepreneurs build that franchise to be a multiple $1 million thing, kind of led me and David to this place of like, why not us? Like, why
Right.
can't we do something? And he really was the one that gave me like the solid kick. I have to give my husband so much credit for Little Rad Things because he was like, just do it. Like,
Yeah.
who cares if we're out $5,000 on this? Like, just go and start.
I love
And
that.
so that's what started it.
Awesome. So what was the first thing that you created and how did it really feel to see that vision come to life?
Yeah, so first thing I sewed actually was a pair of overalls for Paxton, and that was cool because it was like I had this vision in my brain of what I wanted to make, and I made it, and then I posted it, and like friends were like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cute!" And then from there, when we started Little Rad Things, we started with 5 graphic tees, and the first one was a shirt. I could actually tell you a really funny story about this. It was a shirt that said "Do Rad Things" because we were like, "Oh, we're gonna be Little Rad Things," and like kids are doing rad things, and we went to a screen printer, had this design screened and everything, launched our website, and then I got an email from a guy that owns the trademark Do Rad Things, and he was like, "You can't sell this shirt." And that was like my first introduction to business. It was great.
Yeah. It's because like when you don't know, you're like, I wasn't doing this purposely to like, steal this idea. And so speaking of, like many entrepreneurs really start with the idea and then kind of struggle with the execution. Besides copyright issues, what were some of the biggest challenges in turning your idea into a real business?
Yeah, I still struggle with challenges every single day. I would say some of the biggest hurdles that we've had to overcome is just the overall education on the apparel space, right? Because anyone can go out and screen print shirts. But when we really started to get into the weeds of like, okay, how do we make our own t-shirts with our own labels in them? How do we get products made in America? Like, what's a minimum order quantity? What are net terms with suppliers? Like, those were all different challenges that we had to like basically fall on our face on the first time and learn and be like, oh, okay, this is how we do this. And keep going. So there are different challenges every day, but really, I think the biggest thing as a small business owner is you just have to learn to get through it and that there's no other option than to keep moving forward.
Yeah. So can you share a moment where you felt completely like out of your depth and how you kind of pushed through that?
Yeah, I have a really fun one. This past summer, we've scaled tremendously in 2023 and 24, and we had to place the biggest order we've ever placed over the summer. Me, I guess, having low financial IQ to some extent. I was taught by my parents to never have debt or anything like that.
Right.
And so we had a huge order, and I decided before we went on vacation, I was like, I'll just put this on the Amex card, like our business card that has a rolling limit, like nothing really set in stone. And when we were at the beach, Amex flagged the card
Oh
and
my
just
God.
turned the card off and was like, we need you to pay $60,000 on this card to unlock it. And that was honestly one of the hardest moments I've had in business because it was a moment of trying to enjoy a vacation
Right.
and feeling like I'm suffocating at the same time because I was always educated growing up, like, you don't go in debt, you don't pay
Right.
for things that you can't afford. In this case, we had a supplier that made us pay 50% down to get an order rolling. And then we pay 50% when it ships. And so that 50% down was a lot more than we typically spend on things. And that's why Amex was like, whoa, what's
Yeah.
going on here? Are you going to be able to pay this?
Pay us your money now. Oh, that's stressful. Especially like I feel like if you're at home, it would be totally different. But when you're away and just like spending that extra money that without any sort of stress, and then you're like, wait, can I spend this?
Yeah. And what's cool is from that came a lot of quick education on like, there are other financing options, get off the cards, use different options. I mean, it really helped educate me, but in the moment, there are some of these moments as entrepreneurs that really make you like question everything. And that was one of those moments for me. But then, like 2 days later, I was laughing about it and I was like, I can't wait till someday I'm on stage and I can tell this like laughingly.
Right. Yeah, it just takes a little bit. So running a business is one thing, but running it while being a mom is a completely other mountain to, climb. How do you balance the chaos of motherhood and CEO life?
Not very well. Some days are better than others. My biggest rule of thumb is what I can't get done during the hours that my children are not with me can wait, at least when my children are with me. So I try really hard. I wake up super early before the kids are up. So it gives me like almost 2 hours to do some things, get coffee, whatever. I take them to school. They go to school for the most of the day. So I get a lot of time to work on my business during the day. But once they're picked up at 2:30, 3 o'clock, it is like kid zone time, hanging out with them. And then I go back to work in the evening. It's not beautiful. It's hard. And if it was easy, everyone would do it. But I think the biggest way to balance it is to have scheduled time blocks of what you're doing and non-negotiables. And my kids are only going to be little ones. So.
Yeah, it's hard when you don't have a schedule like, 9 to 5 and you're like, okay, I can shut it at 5 o'clock. You're like, well, I could be doing it at 24 hours if I really want.
Yeah.
So what is one thing motherhood has taught you about business, and what is one thing that business has taught you about motherhood?
Oh, that's a great question. Business has taught me about motherhood to be more patient, I think. Yeah, I would say patience. I think I struggled with patience a little bit before I started a business, and it's kind of taught me to like slow down a little bit and understand that things just take a while. What has motherhood taught me about business? That you can do a lot of things at once.
Yeah, it really is so true. Like my husband and I know, I think a lot of parents go through it where you're like, what did I do with my time before kids? And we were very busy before kids, but we're so much more productive in the time that we don't have with our kids. I feel, before it was like, oh, we'll do it later. And now it's like, no, we got to get this. I have my list next to me of like what's happening at nap time.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I look back at my life before kids and I'm like, wow, you had so much time to be creative or read books or just go for walks.
But I feel like motherhood you feel that urge to be creative more because you don't really have the opportunity to do anything really for yourself besides them, which I mean, that's how I feel anyway. But
Yeah, no, I agree. I think my kids have taught me so much about myself in terms of strengths and weaknesses. And it's really fun to get to see them like understand my business starting to grow and we get shipments and they're like, look at Little Rad Things. And they're so pumped about it. It makes it so worth it.
So if your kids could describe your job in their own words, what do you think that they would say?
They would say it's cool, but it takes a lot of time. The kids, as much as I am present with them, it's funny having boys, it's never enough. They always want more. And so I know they would say that I'm always working. I can hear my oldest being like, my mommy's always working. But he would also say it's really cool and that we're going to have a warehouse and that it's fun and yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of good that comes with it, along with the mommy's always working connotation.
That's awesome. So with Little Rad Things, it's not just about clothing, it's a mindset. What does raising rad humans mean to you?
It means kids that are kind and respectful, that have high achieving goals. It means being proud to be an American. One thing that we're really big on as a family is just being super respectful of other people and teaching our kids that you need to be present and that you need to enjoy the outdoors and what life puts in front of you. And that's always been a huge part of our mission as a brand. Like when we started was honesty and our values. And I really think in my heart, like it's been cool to see our customer base kind of find us. It's been hard, honestly, because there are so many brands in today's world. Anyone can spin up a brand and launch something.
Right.
But to truly find people that align with you, and we're really starting to get into that season, is really cool.
Yeah. And your brand has such an authentic voice. How do you stay true to yourself while building something that also resonates with so many other people?
Is never getting caught up in the growth of it. I think it's really cool to be able to tell like some of our metrics of what we've done quickly to host of shows and things of that nature to get some extra brand awareness. But at the end of the day, I'm just a mom like anybody else, like messily figuring it out day by day. And I mean, I'm not perfect by any means. And I think that really helps keep me humble and just like sharing background on my life. Like I actually did a story today with my follower base. I did all my kids' Valentine's last minute.
Yeah.
Kind of forgot. And last night I was like, oh my gosh, we got to do these. So we sat down and did them. And, my kids are 5 and 3, so they don't totally understand it. And I realized when I closed the Valentines for some reason today in the car, out of nowhere on the way to school, I was like, oh no, I closed all the Valentines. So the to from are on the inside.
Oh no. Wait, I think I did that too, actually. Now that you're I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, I think I actually did that. So you're not alone.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to do, right? You just like get in the motion and start doing stuff. But there are little things like that all the time that happen. And I mean, it just is what it is. Nobody's perfect. We just evolve and go. And I think it's hard when you're so present on social media. Like some people start to associate you really closely with your brand to the extent of like, oh, look at all these beautiful pictures of kids or whatever. And it's like, yeah, my life is a little bit like that, but it's not every day. Like my kids don't just leave my house looking rock star and Little Rad Things every day. Like there are days when they have the cartoony pajamas or whatever on. Like I'm a normal mom like anybody else. I just, sometimes style them a little different.
Yeah. And what do you think is one misconception that people have about starting a kid's apparel brand?
It's going to be fast money. I think one thing that people get really blown away by me sharing is that we're $1 million brand and it's not like we're just like rolling in money.
Right.
So much goes into growing to $1 million with expenses and softwares and hiring people. And I mean, it's just really hard. I think a lot of people start and they're like, oh, I'm going to be profitable tomorrow and everybody's going to know about me. And that is not the case whatsoever.
So if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice before starting Little Rad Things, what would it be?
My biggest piece of advice to myself would be to keep your head down and not get caught up with what anyone else does. Yeah. And I would say I do a good job of that for the most part, but I think the biggest thing in this space is you have to stay true to yourself, not worry about anyone else, and just understand that it takes a really long time. And I would say that for any business, you hear those one-off stories of like, we went to 600 million in 1 year, but there are a lot of things probably behind that the general consumer doesn't know about that made that happen. Mm-hmm. That's not normal.
Right. So what do you think are some behind the scenes moments that maybe people don't see on Instagram, but is a huge part of your day-to-day life as an entrepreneur?
Probably me waking up at 4:30 in the morning to do like social media engagement and figure out my posting for the day. Me physically packing orders a lot of the time. I mean, we do occasionally have some help with that, but for the most part, it's me. Those are probably the biggest two. Or even like when we get, a pallet of like 20 plus boxes,
Yeah.
like in 100-degree heat here in North Carolina during the summer, me out there with my box cutter while the kids are just like all
Running
over the
around.
place. Yeah, trying to count units, make sure nothing's defective. Like those are the moments that are not glorious, that don't always get seen on
Mhm.
social media. I will say I'm trying to be better about sharing that stuff now, though, because I do think my audience, like, it's important for them to
Yeah.
see it.
For sure. I think it makes it's definitely more relatable when you're like, okay, I'm struggling with all of this. I'm never going to be successful because, like, look at Maddie. She's, everything looks perfect. But when you show the behind the scenes, you're like, oh, wait, this is what she's doing too. I can be successful, and I think that goes with everything, motherhood, life in general, which is, yeah, I think people love it.
Yeah. Thank you.
So have you had a pinch me moment where you thought like, wow, this is really happening?
Yes, I've had a couple of those. We've had some like really big influential people buy our stuff without us even knowing. Like, I'll never forget, it was like 2 years ago now, but we had an order come through, and my husband was helping me, and he was like, Roxanne. And he like looked at the name, and then he immediately was like, I wonder if this is so and so's wife. And he like looked it up, and it was. And sure enough, it was like a professional motocross rider's
Oh my
wife that my
gosh.
husband knew about, that's like won multiple times. And most recently, we had someone from Vanderpump Rules that we were able to send stuff out to. So, like, those are the moments that are really unique for me. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, like, we have some pretty cool people like wanting to wear our stuff. Probably one of the coolest ones for me was I was packing one day and noticed that Adriana Lima, the Victoria's Secret model, bought my.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And so deserved. Like, I do feel
Thank
as
you.
though, even though that like doesn't define you, you're like, okay, but like you do need validation in some ways with stuff. Like, and that's like a cool way to be validated, I feel. That's so neat.
Yeah.
So what keeps you up at night as a business owner and what gets you out of bed at 4:30 in the morning? So
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah, I would say they're both honestly the same thing. I think my fear of not succeeding is what drives me the most. And knowing that I don't ever want to feel like I have to give up on it.
Right.
As I mentioned earlier, like Little Rad Things is still in such a state of growth, but with that comes a lot of expenses and a lot of stress. And I just feel like I always wake up and I'm like, okay, I hope today, like, we continue to move forward and not reverse. And I just try to put my best foot forward every day. And that honestly gets me excited to get up. It makes it hard to fall asleep at night, but
Yeah.
it makes it easy to wake up in the morning.
That's great. So when you're not running a business or being a mom, what's your go-to way to recharge?
CrossFit, which
Ooh.
probably sounds counterintuitive to recharging. Something about like just a good community workout. And I've been doing CrossFit for 8 years. Like whether it be going to the gym and working out with my crew of people there and just hearing funny stories about life and like men talk about men things is really a good recharge for me because I just don't think at all about my business while I'm there. Or even like going for a run or a walk. Those
Mhm.
are great resets for me.
Yeah. And if you could design your perfect day, no responsibilities, no emails, just happiness, what would it look like?
I would be at a beautiful beach with a book and
Mm,
a cold glass of something. I don't know what. Just hanging out reading. My kids would be there and playing, hopefully not bothering me too much. But like, I really enjoy just having downtime to read a book or paint. And
yeah.
so being at like a nice warm spot where I can just casually do that and not worry about anything else would be amazing.
Right. So, as we mentioned in the beginning, finding boys' clothing is so difficult. What was your vision behind what you wanted to create in a boy forward company?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for both David and I that we noticed with our son's clothes is nothing really matched our aesthetic together.
Hmm.
And so when it came to designing, for me, it was like, okay, I'm really passionate about like vintage music and vintage aesthetic. And then my husband grew up in California, immediately like out of high school, started working in racing, has always been involved in cars and motorsports. I was involved in motorsports. Boys love cars. So it really just became a blending, beautiful, I don't want to say chaotic, but like really fun designs that are based off of like us and who
Yeah.
we are. And we knew that like whatever I came up with for the most part, like we would both love. And I say for the most part because I do love color, which is something my husband doesn't love. And I think as adults, like we typically get out of wearing fun colors, although it's
Mhm.
funny because you and I are wearing fun colors
Yeah.
right now. But I mean, it's just still adding some of those playful elements of a regular like boys
Mhm.
attire with the fun colors and then mashing them up with things that adults actually like too.
Yeah.
So it's like a nice meet in the middle blended composition.
Have you ever thought about getting input from your boys?
Yeah. Yeah, and I have to an extent. It's kind of funny. Like, I have an iPad that I draw on with Procreate,
Mhm.
and I will be completely transparent. Like, I draw an idea of what I want, and then I have a designer that I absolutely adore that I send to, and he makes it like more beautiful than what I
Mhm.
could do. But it's funny. I'll sit there in bed sometimes when their dad's gone, and they'll be in bed with me, and they'll give feedback. I most recently was working on a project not for Little Rad Things, but for a NASCAR driver, and they were both like, "This is so cool! I want so and so shirt because you're
Oh,
making it, and it's cool." But yeah, it's
that's
neat.
so neat. And that's cool for them to like get a taste of entrepreneurship at such a young age. So what's next for you and for Little Rad Things? Any exciting things in the pipeline we should keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I think what's really exciting is we're starting to shift towards doing like a neutral line of
Hmm.
apparel for boys that's a little more cost effective and American made. We initially started our brand, with the graphic tees that were very like RBCA, Volcame. Now we're kind of leaning more into like the everyday staples that the mom can just grab and throw on her kids right out of the washing machine. And what's cool is we've like almost fully transitioned to American made now.
That's
So I'm really
awesome.
proud of that we're able as a small business to, help support American workers here and get our products from here. I think that's
Yeah.
huge. And we just plan to continue growing that.
That's awesome. And like one quick thing, when I was shopping, I thrift a lot and like I look and like at the tags and like one of the brands I remember it said like made in USA. And then you like looked at the tag again, like the other tag and it's like made in China. I'm like, what? Like that it was
Oh,
very like count. So I'm always trying to look for American, based to support those companies. So that's great to know that you guys are one of them. And that's amazing.
yeah. Thank you.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you. That you gave us so much information. And as mentioned in the beginning, like you are just such an inspiration for moms everywhere that you are balancing all of this chaos. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing your story. All right. So that's going to bring us to the end of another episode of The Running Wine Mom. For anyone listening who's feeling that spark of inspiration, whether it's to start your own business, embrace the chaos of motherhood, or simply remind yourself that you can do hard things, just know that you are not alone. You've got this. And hey, if all else fails, there's always a good run or a glass of wine to reset, right? If you want to check out Little Rad Things and get your hands on some of Maddy's amazing designs, head over to littleradthings.com, which I will link in the show notes. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it. You can follow me on Instagram at @therunningwinemom_. And Maddy, where can the listeners find you?
Yeah, at the Little Rad Things on Instagram and at Maddy Fero.
Perfect. And I will link all that. So thank you, Maddy, very much. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us today. Remember, you are strong, you are capable, and you are all amazing. Until next time, keep running, keep sipping, and keep embracing the joy of motherhood. Cheers, and I will be back next Tuesday.